go live on Facebook. All right, welcome back to episode number 20 of the Blossoming into You show. I'm your host, Mika Lau. And on this episode, we have with me Suzi, all the way from New Jersey, or south of Jersey. And we're going to be talking about fertility for the soul. Such a fun topic. And I'm going to have Suzi elaborate more on what that means in just here in a second. So before we do that, Suzi, let us know a little bit about you and what you're all about.
Well, how much you want to know? Like my whole story, or
Share with what's most like present for you now. What's coming up for you that you feel like the audience would really like to know related to this topic.
right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Susie, and I am a yoga teacher. That's my true passion. But through the path of yoga, I've found so much healing and so much just empowerment for myself, and I would love to share that with anyone and everyone who will listen. so, um, so fertility for the soul, um, for me, is fertility is not just about creating babies; it's about creating anything that we want in our lives, right? So, shortly after my yoga teacher training, I I should backtrack. Excuse me. So I came down with severe endometriosis. I pretty much had it my whole life. I just never knew it was an issue. I just always had really painful periods, and I just thought it was how life was. And I would literally be on painkillers and pain um, relieving medications for most of my teenage to young adult life. And I just thought it was a fact of life. And found out I had severe endometriosis. And during that time, I also started to look for like gentle ways to keep in shape and to exercise. And I found yoga, and I fell in love with it after the first class. And shortly after, my friend was like, "Hey, I'm doing this yoga teacher training. Do you want to come with me?" And I was like, "Well, I haven't really done yoga, but like I don't know it well enough to take a teacher training." But I'm like, you know what? Why not be a blank canvas and let them teach me the right way to do yoga? And 3 months into that training, I had a abdominal uh, laparoscopic surgery scheduled for them to go in and remove all the scar tissue, because I was laced from abdomen to bowel
Mm-hmm.
with horrible scar tissue, and they told me I wouldn't be able to have children. So I was like, okay, um, let's make it so that I can have children. I was like 37 at the time, and shortly after my yoga training, I realized, wait a minute, I'm not in pain anymore. I'm not I'm not constantly taking a leave or walking around with a heating pad on. And I'm like, wait a minute. Maybe there's something magical about this yoga. And I canceled my surgery that I had scheduled for over a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, let me see what happens. And through yoga, I realized I started making changes where I would listen to my body, and just little inklings. And not that I'm saying that any of the things I did are going to make anyone pregnant or um, achieve what they want. But I started just listening to my body. And, all of a sudden I was like, you know what? I don't feel like eating red meat anymore. Maybe I'm going to try that. Or I
Mm-hmm.
don't feel like wearing aluminum based deodorants, just little things like that. And it started like paving the way for me to become pregnant. Little did I know at
Mm-hmm.
the time. So my yoga teacher training ended, and I had an opportunity to go out to California. And I was like, all right, that's great. Let me go to California. And I find out it's a 3-day trip. Well, I haven't been on vacation at that point in like 3 or 5 years. And I was like, I'm not going out to California for 3 days. So I was like, let me find a yoga training. Like, that's what I'm doing right now in my life. I kept looking, and the only thing I could find was the Kundalini prenatal yoga. I was like, I don't even know what the heck Kundalini was at the time. And I'm like, prenatal. I'm like, well, I can't have babies. I'm like, hey, great. At least I can empower women to bring beautiful babies into the world and be connected to them. Because at this point now I'm like 38, almost 39. I think I'm like, there's no way I'm getting pregnant. It was totally off my chart, off my radar. So I go to this training for about 7 days. We're rubbing our bellies and chanting songs and just, that like mama vibe energy. I come home and a month and a half later, I was pregnant.
Oh my
I was
God.
pregnant after we tried when we first got married. When I was 27, we tried for like 3 years where I like went off the pill and my health just declined. And
Mhm.
here, just this short little time of doing yoga and breathing and getting in touch with my body and just connecting to that mind, body, soul connection, I was able to get pregnant. I mean, the doctors couldn't believe it. So that's what I want to share. I want to give people the tools that, yes, we can help our bodies to heal themselves.
Susie, as magical as that is, like, I'm not surprised. And I am also like seeing, envisioning where we're headed, where this becomes the new normal. Like coming back home to listening to our body's innate wisdom and building that relationship and healing. Like instead of it being, ooh, so magical and like, what, how did you do it? It's starting to become, it gets to become more normal. And that is the way to do things versus what we have now traditionally. So and you're the second guest that I have on so far. Like we're only on episode 20, and I had another woman, I believe it was Taja actually, your buddy. She mentioned also doing Kundalini yoga, and that supported her health. So very fascinating. Why do you think that is? Like if you can, I mean, you've been through that journey yourself, you have personal experience. Like tell us more about what listening to our body looks like, why that was healing, and how did all of this work?
So, and of course I'm constantly learning. I mean, it's just amazing. The more I feel like I've, learned enough about a certain type of yoga or this or that, then it's like a whole new branch of information comes out. And so after my yoga training, I really delved into yin yoga. And yin yoga is
Mm,
based on Chinese traditional medicine. And I just love that form of yoga. And with that, so the reason I'm saying is because I've learned a lot through um, my extensive training, and now I actually lead trainings with the yin yoga because based on the meridians, it teaches us the same thing that when we have stagnant energy or blocked energy within the meridians, then there's disharmony. Every thought, every emotion has a vibration. And so when you think about that, then there's those stuck vibrations within us. So being able to clear that out. So just by holding a pose and sending breath and energy to that area, you can focus it on a fear, on a limiting belief, on just a certain part of the body. And next thing you know, it may not happen the first session, but next thing you know, all of a sudden, just like me, I was 3 months into my yoga training, I realized I didn't have any pain. It's the magic of breathing with intention. It really is intention.
mhm,
Our bodies are and our minds, when we're in connection with each other, we can create anything that we want in our lives because we're open to it and we're setting that intention. They've done
mhm,
studies where they say, um, as soon as we make up our mind and set an intention or a goal, and we know that we're doing it no matter what, it's like the brain is like, yep, it's done.
mhm.
It doesn't know the difference. So
Yes.
it's about being truly open and not having that inner talk of, oh, yeah, right, they do it better than me, or I'm not good enough. Like letting go of all those patterns of thinking and just
Mhm.
really allowing yourself to be and to shine from your authenticity in your light, if that makes sense.
No, 100%. Like to me, authenticity means like the core truth of who I am or what I am, like spirit, the essence of me. And whenever I am indulging in, let's say, in thoughts that are limiting or thoughts that I've picked up from the past or emotions from my trauma, then I'm not being authentic because I'm letting this part of me that's not who I am to take over and become the driver of my life. And this is very like moment by moment thing. Like every moment I get to catch myself like, oh, am I being authentic right now, or am I letting these emotions and thoughts that are not me to run my life pretty much? And we're all guilty of this. I mean, this is not a bad thing. Like it's all part of the human experience.
Exactly.
And but I do know like how powerful it is in terms of like our connection to our body, and just like how there's so many different paths to build that connection. Like for you it was yoga and yin yoga, for me it was like dancing, pole dancing specifically. And the moment I started allowing my body, like creating space for the body to move, it's almost like my personal development journey and my healing journey just skyrocketed. Because like the trauma lives in our body. We can never think our way out of the trauma. So if we're living from here and up, which I've done my whole life, there's so many of these like feelings of unworthiness, feelings of not good enough, and the shame and the guilt. It's all down here. So if I don't have a connection with the body, then it's going to continue to run my life. So that's why to me I get how important that is. So do you want to talk about the trauma piece? You mentioned like the healing. So how does your relationship with your body has done anything for you in terms of healing trauma?
So, what kept coming up for me when you're talking was, I kept thinking about how much, it, if we don't have a connection with our mind and our body, then we can't recognize the subtle hints. Like if you notice the next time like you're around somebody that aggravates you, you may start noticing like tension in the lower back, or
Mhm.
you start to notice how your body reacts to certain situations, to certain people. And then when you have that knowledge, then you can start to heal it, right?
Mhm.
And for me, just, I mean, there's so many, like, I know this is gonna sound crazy, but I did like a whole kind of like a mindfulness um course where it was all about like befriending that voice inside. And
Mhm.
since I took that course, like I don't have that negative back talk that I used to have. That so many people, I hear them say, and I'm like, I used to I used to just berate myself. Like if I didn't do something, that moment, like somebody was going to be upset with me or, whatever. Like I would live in fear and guilt all the time. And it's just being able to befriend that voice I was able to quiet it. I realized that I can be my best friend. I can be my biggest motivator. And when you do that and you befriend it, that inner voice, you're able to shine even more so, because now you don't have that person. Because you wouldn't talk like that to a friend. You wouldn't be like, "Oh man, you're so stupid. I can't believe you did that." Like that's
Yeah, we
the
do that
hardest
to
thing.
ourselves a
Yeah.
lot. Hmm.
So again, it's just having the little pieces and the little tools to truly create the lives that we want. We can
Hmm.
live without fear and judgment of ourselves, and live trauma free and live without emotions controlling us all the time.
Hmm. Well, first of all, Susie, there's absolutely nothing on my show that can be crazy. This is a space where every woman gets to be expressing the authentic truth, and no such thing as crazy. But I do want to talk about, it's so true. Like most of us, until we do these like deep dives and then healing and releasing the limiting beliefs and the trauma, most of us are pretty much living our lives, having relationships, building a family, building a business as that 5 year old little girl, a little boy that never had the chance to process or release those trauma. So we bring that little girl with us into everything that we do. And we react from the triggers, react from like the past experiences. That's such a heavy way to live. It's such like a almost like bondage to the past. And in so many ways, I'm still recognizing, like even me, I've done so much work on myself, and there's still always opportunities to release, relax, and release. And for me personally, what connecting to my body has done is when I can localize, like, where do I feel this shame, or where do I feel this fear? Where do I feel this not good enoughness in my body? Like, localize that to, let's say, like maybe in my throat space or in my tummy. Then I can so much easier detach from that, knowing that that's not me. Like, really be able to like separate these two things, and being able to cultivate a loving space to hold this part of me that just wants some love. Like, that has really supported me versus feeling like I'm merged. Like, this is me. This is like, this shame is me. And that's how it really felt in the past when I was living like up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Have
it's
you?
so true. Like,
Mhm.
um, the the theory behind traditional Chinese medicine is that when we are able to accept ourselves as we are, as whole, then we can truly heal. And it's like when you look at a tree out in nature, you don't think of the tree and be like, oh man, it's got like way too many leaves on this side and there's a branch missing over there. No, we just accept the tree for its beauty and we're grateful for it giving us oxygen to support us. And the same thing is that each person in our lives on this planet, including ourselves, has its own unique value and is perfect in its wholeness.
Mhm.
We've just allowed some things to take over that wholeness, right? But when we can be aware of what it is, whether it's an emotion or a pain, and we accept it, and then we can fully release it, that gives the brain the signal to start healing. And that's
Mhm.
where the magic in is a lot of these things. And like you said, you found it through dancing. Some people
Mhm.
find it through surfing. I mean, look at all the sports stars. When they're in the zone, that's them doing what we're doing. We're just
Yeah.
doing it on this level. It's like we all have to find what works for us, but to have the tools and the mind body connection, I think is the biggest key thing.
Hmm. And so I do want to tie it back to the at the beginning when you elaborated a little bit on the title, which I think is so beautiful. Yeah, it's not just about having a baby. Fertility means that we are so much in this vibrant life force, that in this creativity, and everything in life is creativity. Without our imagination, without our ideas, these creative ideas, and executing committed action, following through, then the things that we get to see now, like my phone, my microphone, everything, it wouldn't exist. So having that vital life force and us connecting to it, us accessing our creativity, it's what life is about. And
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
without this, like, what else are we here to live for?
Yeah. And every thought, single thing that we do is a creation, like you said, because
Mhm.
it's coming from our inspiration, it's coming from our heart and our essence. So
Mhm.
yeah. And then when we can be fully creating everything that we want, like that's just magical.
It's like you're fully alive. You're
Yeah.
living a fully alive life. And for me, like Susie and my clients, my audience know this, like where I know the most powerful, like quickest path to, let's say, liberating shame and liberating, unlocking this potent life force for me personally, and the women I work with, is like going to the place that holds the most shame, which is for me like my body and my sexuality. So if I were to go right there to the darkest place in my body and shine light on that, it's like instant liberation and reclaiming of all of my powers, because it requires tremendous power to hold on to shame in our bodies. And for me personally, I see our sexual energy as our ultimate life force. It stems from like down here, our sacral chakra or root chakra. I'm not
Oh,
too familiar with it. And then like these energy force like a sense of shoots up like to my heart. And if I have walls around it, then I can feel this life force. So it's my devotion to like healing the trauma from childhood. So I break down the walls around my heart so I can feel like ecstasy and bliss and joy and all the amazing stuff. And then that also feel into like my third eye and my creativity. Like that's how it works for me.
yeah, you described it perfectly. And here you said you didn't know that much about it.
Just from personal experience and like intuition.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, Susie, I'm curious. Like you mentioned yin yoga. Have you heard of in meditation? Because that's been bouncing around for me. Like I've been seeing people talk about it. Do you know anything about in meditation?
In meditation?
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard that per se. Now I'm curious.
From what I understand, is like instead of being like a primal full body releasing about emotions, but you are like grounded and centered in like a meditation stillness and feeling through the emotion is what I'm understanding, but I don't know.
It sounds very similar to how I do a yin yoga class, but now I'm definitely gonna
Mm,
have to look that up. That's very interesting.
yeah, so in yoga it's like a mind body thing where you're feeling emotions too.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. So yin yoga, what you do is you hold the yoga postures for
mhm,
longer periods of time, it's like 3 to 5 minutes,
mm.
which can be very mentally challenging, more than physically, right?
Mhm,
Because all of a sudden you're just in this not uncomfortable position, but you're like in a child's pose for 5 minutes,
mhm,
or a pigeon. And during that, we're stimulating the muscles where the stress and the trauma has uh, resided for so many years, and we're
mhm.
also stimulating the meridian. And now we're left alone with our thoughts,
Yeah.
right? So then I usually guide through breath work and also through sending emotion and healing and release to that area. So
Mhm,
that's where that it seems very similar. And definitely
mhm,
a lot of times in class, like some people will cry, some people get angry, some people just want to get up and check their phone. And it's like those are all symptoms of there being some sort of trauma that needs to be released in an area. So it's very
mhm.
fascinating to see also
Wow.
how our bodies react in certain poses.
No, I can definitely see. I'm so curious because I can see a practice like that requires tremendous mindfulness. Like for me, dancing, it's more almost like I'm letting the body move me and just being in the flow. But with this, it's like a mental thing too. Like I get to bring mindfulness and presence and like holding myself in that courageous way as I feel through the emotion. So I'll look into that. It's so interesting. So as we're wrapping up, Susie, is there any last words you would like to share with our audience today if they are maybe sharing a similar path as you, let's say like before you discover in yoga, and if they're struggling with some physical challenges, like what would you say to them if they're listening right now?
It just the most important thing is genuinely just accepting yourself fully, and embracing, like you were speaking of the darkness.
Mhm,
And it's so easy to be, well, not easy, but so many people are on this like positivity, 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 and it's like, yeah, that gets you so far. But when you can truly embrace all of yourself, the dark edges and curves, right, that you're not so proud of, and just know that that's you, and just love yourself regardless of that, that's when we can truly be open to healing and help. And if we don't love ourselves first, how can we truly love anything in our lives? And I guess to me, that's what I've learned through being a young mother, or a new mother, not young.
Still young.
And
Young is a state of mind. So
very true, very true. And I feel younger today than I have,
mm,
in the past. So
ah,
definitely. And just genuinely knowing that you truly love yourself is such a beautiful gift that we all deserve to have. And
mhm,
if I can help one person achieve that, then my job on the surface is
mm.
done.
I'm feeling so much resonance with my entire body because you're absolutely right. Like when we cultivate this space of unconditional self love, we don't need to do anything. Like the transformation of healing happens on its own. It's like, and like my show blossoming into you, it's a beautiful rose that when you have the right nutrients, the right, like cultivate the right environment, it's going to blossom like completely on its own. We don't gotta force it. We don't have to like peel it open. It's just going to bloom if we give ourselves that nurturing love and acceptance. And that's the work versus all of the other things that we've been conditioned to do. So, Susie, what a blessing to have you. Thank you so much for not only like having been doing the work on your own, but like putting yourself out there to serve others, to shine your light on others. And thank you for your time today. It's such a blessing for our show and such a blessing for our audience to hear from you. I'm so honored. And thank you everyone for tuning in today. As always, anytime you dedicate time for yourself like this, you are pouring love to yourself. So thank you for showing up. Thank you for saying yes to yourself and share with us what your takeaways are. You can always reach me via email or Facebook or whatever, wherever you find this. And if anything you want to share with Susie, I'll also pass that forward. So with that being said, sending so much love to all of you, and then I'll see you for episode 21. Take care.